everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got an FN 509 and I've got a SIG P320. They're both chambered in 9mm, and both of these are civilian variations of the guns that the two companies submitted to the military MHS trials. And of course, as you well know, the SIG was the chosen one in that case. But I'm going to show you a couple differences, and some similarities between the two guns that were entered. And of course, keeping in mind the actual gun that was entered is a little bit different. There's a few different characteristics than the civilian versions. But overall, they're very similar. And a couple of the reasons, some of the differences might have been why the military went one way or the other. To start with, they're both very similarly sized. The FN is 7.4 inches front to back. The SIG Sauer is 7.2 front to back. A lot of that is probably on the gap from the beaver tail to the nose. So the SIG's a little bit shorter in that dimension. The height is 5.56 on the FN and it's 5.5 on the SIG. Now FN actually quotes that extra decimal position on their height and SIG doesn't. They're probably very close, and I'll show you when I stand them up side by side. And from a thickness perspective, this one is 1.35 inches and the SIG Sauer is 1.3 inches. And that's also probably very similar in the way, just the extra decimal position. From a weight perspective, this one is 26.9, this one is 26.5, the P320 is 26.5. So it's not a significant difference in any of the dimensional specs. They both hold 17 rounds, and they both are in, kind of a compact / carry size. So let me pick them up, show you they're unloaded, and talk about a few of the characteristics of them. So I have an unloaded 509. And we have an unloaded P320. Both of them have, as I mentioned, 17 round. They're steel mags. They have witness holes, a little bit different orientation. You've got a witness hole for every round on the 509, and you've got every few for the P320. The 509 has a bright orange follower. When it's in the gun and the gun's locked back and it's empty, it stands right out. You can really see it. Minor difference, just kind of something to note. Both of them have a similar takedown strategy in that you lock them back, turn a lever down, slides right apart. So they both take apart very easily. Both of them have very nice sights, and they're dovetailed front and rear. Now there's a little bit of difference in the sights. The 509, which is this one here on the left, has luminescent sights. So they're 3-dot luminescent sight. I'll line them up. And when there's a very bright light on them, they stand out. When the light's a little dimmer, they tend to turn kind of like a faded green. They don't really pop out as much. Had a little bit more trouble seeing these sights under varying lighting conditions. The SIG, this particular one, has 3-dot, just bright white sights. They're high contrast, bright white sight. Both guns are available with night sights. With this one, the 509, it's on the LE edition. On the P320, it just varies which ones you find. You'll find them with night sights, you'll find them without. You might go into one gun store and every one of them has night sights. Go into a different store and none of them do. SIG does, there's a lot of variations on how SIG packages up their guns and what's available. I did like the sights on the P320 a little better. Doesn't matter the lighting conditions, those big white dots stand right out. Interestingly enough, though I had an easier time seeing the sights on the P320, I was able to pull slightly tighter groups with the 509, but back and forth. I'd get one where I'd get a little better group with this, and another one with that, so it kind of went back and forth. They're both very close in that regard. From a control standpoint, the 509 has ambidextrous controls. Both the magazine release and the slide stop / slide release are ambidextrous. Of course, the takedown's only on the one side, but that's less of an issue. The P320 has ambidextrous slide stop / release and a reversible magazine catch. It's a magazine release. You can flip it around fairly easily, with a little bit of tools, no extra parts you have to buy. But it is not true ambidextrous, and of course the takedown on the left side only. From a customization standpoint to fit you, the 509 has replaceable back straps like a lot of guns on the market today. The PPQ, the Glocks, and many of the others. And you can replace this with kind of a small, medium, large type thing. Pop out the pin, swap the back straps, and the back straps come with it. So this gun can be customized at least for, you know, the overall grip size, the way it comes out of the box. The P320 took a totally different approach in that you can replace the whole grip frame. And when I get it apart, I'll show you the sub-chassis in here. The chassis that's inside here is actually the firearm. This frame is just a plastic housing that is in, and there's some advantages and disadvantages to that. But as it comes from the factory, whatever size it is you bought, that's the size it is. There's no customization unless you buy other grip frames. They range anywhere from $40 to $60 retail depending on where you buy them. The hard part is finding them. Some grip frame sizes are all over the place. You can get them everywhere, you can get them cheap, you can pick them up just left and right. Others, like trying to get your hands on, this is a Carry, trying to get your hands on a Carry large frame is impossible. Nobody's got them. SIG doesn't have them. You know, we searched all over the place and nobody's got them. We ended up finding a large compact on one of the auction sites from a private person selling it, and it happened to be an OD green, and that was the only available choice. So if you've got larger hands and you're looking for the larger grip sizes, you're going to have a harder time finding them. The mediums are all over the place. So the whole concept of the removable chassis, replaceable grip frames, it's kind of a cool concept. But like any really good concept, implementation can kill it. And I do believe that SIG has kind of hurt the concept with the implementation. One of the other advantages the SIG has is with that replaceable chassis, you can replace the upper assembly, the slide barrel assembly, with other calibers, other lengths, and some of the lengths, like the compact to the Carry, it's the same frame length, so they're interchangeable. So there's a compact, there's a Carry. You know, they work together and they fit and they look nice. You can put different size frames on a different slide, but you might end up with a Franken gun, something kind of looks like that, or kind of looks like that. So conceptually, it does give you a lot of flexibility, but the limitations are that the caliber change kits, the slide barrel change kits, are $399, $400 plus. The gun itself, though it retails MSRP for $679, can often be had far less than that. For example, we got this one here that you're looking at for around $500 from our friends over at Guns Galore. So when you look at it from the standpoint of buy $400-ish to buy a slide and barrel combination, I can buy a whole new gun for $500, it starts to lose its luster. Now I do get it if you're in a less free environment where getting a gun, buying a firearm, is more than just going down the store, filling out a form and bringing it home. We have to go through extra paperwork, permits, and things like that, or where you may be even limited to the number you're allowed to own. That concept will allow you to have multiple different firearms with only having to have one registered chassis. If you're in a place like we are in Florida, where I can run out to the store, pick up a gallon of milk, stop by the gun store, pick up a P320 and bring it home, that has less appeal to it. So when you look at the differences, the P320 is ultimately more customizable overall than the 509, but in practice that customization is limited by availability and practical usefulness and cost. So let me put the magazines in and just I gave you the numbers, but also kind of show you side by side how little difference it actually makes with the sizes that we're discussing. So if I put the P320, line them up beaver tail to beaver tail, turn a little bit, you see that 0.2-ish inches really doesn't make a huge difference in overall length. And in the height, you'll see that the 509 is just a hair taller. Let me get them so they're laying perfectly straight up and down. It's just a hair taller. Like when I run my finger back and forth, it just catches a hair. So it's minimal difference between the two. And the thickness, when I set them side by side, it's a negligible difference. Look them up. It's a negligible difference. So if you were thinking about carrying one of these, none of those dimensions that I mentioned are going to make a bit of difference. It's going to more come down to the ergonomics and what you like better. Now on the P320, I'd mentioned the grip frames. If I set this grip frame up, try to make it equal, you'll see the green grip frame is a compact. The black frame that the gun came with originally is the Carry size, and you forfeit 2 rounds to shorten the grip a little bit. And you can, if you have this grip installed, still use the 17 round magazine. They'll just stick down a little bit. But there's also a 15 round magazine available that fits flush. And of course, if you're going for the smaller grip, it's probably because you're trying to conceal it and you're going to want that shorter magazine. Now, I mentioned the takedown procedure on them. We'll take them down one at a time. What you do is you lock them back, remove the magazine, and flip this lever. But 509, you have to pull the trigger, and then they disassemble. Let's take a look at the slide first. I'll set the frame down. Has a captive dual recoil spring. Nice barrel, a little bit of a flare at the end, and a shiny polished, but it's not, mirror finish polished feed ramp. You can see little machining marks in it if you get close to it, which would probably be tough to do on the camera, but you can see that there's a little bit of a machine pattern to it. However, the gun's been absolutely reliable. It's fed everything, so that the feed ramp is working quite well. It's doing exactly what it needs to do. And then you've got the lock. So look at the rest of the slide. The back, there's the drop safety, the catch for the striker. Everything in here is clean, nice and well machined. It's a well assembled, good quality gun. Look at the frame. The locking block is nice and robust and solid. The rails are a little bit bigger than something like a Glock and some of the others, but they're not full length. You get just a little piece right here. At the back, they're much longer and wide and flat. Overall, well done, and again, as I mentioned, the gun has just been flawless in function from round one to the last round we fired, no matter what we were feeding it. I'll go ahead and take apart the SIG, and then I'll also show you some side-by-side comparisons. Now the SIG takes apart very similarly. You lock it back, remove the magazine. Now this particular version of it, this exact instance, and we've got 3 of these things, actually we've got 4 of these things. This one's a nightmare to turn the takedown lever on. It is really, really very, very stiff, and I have to push down on it hard. I've got others that are just, real easy. So on some of our prior SIG videos, some people had mentioned having difficulty turning this, and I wasn't experiencing that, but with this one we are. So there does seem to be some variation from model or from instance to instance. And you release it, and the SIG, you don't have to pull the trigger; you can just slide it apart. Again, this has a captive dual guide rod, or should I say dual spring guide rod. Here's the barrel. Now on this one, the feed ramp's a little bit narrower, and it's smooth, but it's not necessarily polished. But this gun has also been reliable. So both feed ramps are doing their job, and they're working well. And it's a nice, smoothly machined, well done barrel. Inside the slide, you've got the drop safety, and sear are back here at the back. The drop safety is this little lever. So it's just a slightly different way of doing it, but it's fully functional and it does work well. You can see it from that angle. So both do the job, they just do it a little bit differently. And overall, this one is equally well machined. Looking at the frames, now this is where they differ. And if I put them up side by side, you'll see that there's a little bit more going on in the SIG. Well, the SIG this is the whole removable frame, and this removable frame is the firearm itself. You pull that out, stick it into the actual grip frame of your choice. And we've got full videos on both of these guns actually. And in our full review video, we actually take this out and show you the various components of the actual chassis itself. They call this a chassis. This is the primary difference between the two. This removable chassis allows this particular fire control group to be pulled out and added to whatever frame you want, and that is one of the modularity parts of it. From a function standpoint, the design, they both work well, they've both been reliable, and I could recommend either one of them. So we go ahead and get them put back together again, and then we'll resume. So putting them back together, drop the barrel in, drop the guide rod in. Make sure it's centered. The SIG is really touchy. If you don't get it centered nicely, when you go to put it back together, it'll tend to hang up. It can be a bit of a hassle. Let's see if I got it centered correctly. I did. I just slide it on, drop the takedown. So I've got a reassembled and functional SIG. I'll do the same with the 509. 509 tends to seems to like self-center itself a little bit better and be a little less touchy. So now that I've got them back together, I'm going to put them side by side and we're going to talk about the triggers, you know, the one remaining thing to compare between the two guns. So let me get them cycled so they're ready to go. One thing I will note too, the slide on the SIG is lighter. So every once in a while you'll have somebody that has a little less grip strength, less overall strength. It's easier to pull the slide back on the SIG than the 509. The 509 is a little stiffer, and I'm having to put more force on it and clamp my fingers on it a little bit tighter. You know, both of them, if you've got full strength, it's really no big deal. But this is a little bit lighter if you're looking for a solution to that kind of a problem. The trigger on this one, it's got the hinge trigger similar to the Smith & Wesson's. When you pull it back, you can actually probably hear it. I'll shut up and do it. It feels a little gritty on the take-up, and you're hearing that noise. And it's not just this part. The hinge trigger is not making any noise or any grit. It's the actual take-up itself. Then you're on the wall. And then it's a very, very crisp break, and it's a short break. There's the reset. And you'll notice it kind of stuttered a little bit. There is a little bit of grit in the reset. As I'm letting it out, it's not perfectly smooth. And then that would be all the way out. So when I'm doing the reset, if you're somebody that's wanting to use the reset, it kind of hung up there a little bit. It's a little bit harder to get a clean reset on this. Now I'm sure that, you know, and I probably will do this, you can get in and polish the internals and smooth that out a little bit. But right from the factory with, you know, probably about 1,000 rounds through it, it's not as smooth as you might like. Now on the SIG, very, very short take-up. A little bit of creep in the brake, but there's the brake, relatively short. And there's the reset. And it's audible and tactile. You feel it, and you can hear it, and then the brake again. Now one thing I'll mention on this trigger, and I guess I'll let it back out again, and I mentioned we've got several of these things. The trigger on all of them is different. It feels a little different, the take-up's a little different, the creep is a little different. There is not as much consistency between instances of these guns as some other guns like a Glock, where, you know, the Glock triggers tend to be pretty consistent across the lines. Even though the pocket Glocks, the 42, 43s, did vary a little bit between each one. But we noticed some variation. This particular P320 of all of ours seems to have the nicest trigger. But what I find on this trigger and what you find on one you pick up at the store, they may vary. I am not really sure why that variation exists, but, you know, I've seen this across this one and some others that friends of ours have had. Overall, between the two triggers, they're both very good triggers. Both of them were easy to get good follow-up shots, both easy to use. But I think the SIG's trigger wins by a hair. Even though it's got a little creep in the brake, it's an overall smoother trigger experience, and it's just a little bit nicer trigger. And the factory sights are a little bit nicer. So there's kind of a little bit of an edge towards the SIG. The biggest disadvantage of the SIG, it's one of its advantages at the same time, is this replaceable grip frame. If this gun doesn't fit your hand from the factory, you can take right out of the box it came with, swap out the back straps, and make it fit. If this one doesn't fit your hand properly from the factory, you're going to have to try to find a grip frame. The only other disadvantage of that is, if I go to a gun store and look for 509s, this is what you're going to see, period. They're going to be out there, they're going to be available. You might be able to find the LE version with the night sights, but it's going to be really easy to find the 509 you like because it's this one. With the SIGs, with the variations in the sizes and the widths, you know, the mediums, medium, small, and large grip frames, and carry and compact, walking into your local gun store and finding the one you want is probably going to be rather difficult. What you're probably going to end up doing is find one that the slide length is what you want, and the caliber is what you want, and then buy a grip frame, if you can find it, that will suit your needs. Because just walking into a gun store with all those variations and finding the exact one you want might be a little bit tough. In summary, Both of them are good quality. Both of them will serve you well. If there's something about one that you like over the other, don't hesitate to buy the one that you like better, that feels better. Neither one of these has had any quality or performance issues, other than only like the annoyance of the takedown. But I can kind of see why the SIG won the MHS, because it met some of the modularity requirements, and it does have a slightly better trigger. So if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, check us out on Facebook, and have a great day. Thank you.